John likes tech and lives in Indiana, you know. Kevin likes the Dodgers and talks on the radio. John plays games on Xbox and on his Nintendo, while Kevin runs around LA with his mustachio. It's the Lack of Genius podcast, in your ear holes at last. They don't know they're Mars from Venus, that's why it's the Lack of Genius podcast. It's not just John and Kevin today, is it, John?
Nope.
That was John, I'm Kevin, and we have a special guest today. A professional athlete. This is our first professional athlete, isn't it? Because technically we had a joggler on, we had a guy who plays cornhole, but none of them at the professional level. Our professional athlete for the day is Benny Weischedel. Say hi to Benny, everyone. Woo! Hey, Benny, good to see you, man.
Hi, Benny.
Hey, good to see you guys.
Do you like going by Benny or Ben? What's your preference?
It's just kind of situational. When playful on the field, we'll go by Benny or Benji. If I'm at the workplace, I'm going by Ben because I need people to take me seriously.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is not a place of seriousness, so I'm going to go with Benny and maybe even Benji now and then, okay?
That sounds good.
Well, let's introduce what you are known for, what your professional athleticism is. You are a professional rugby player. You play, I'll let you fill in the blanks here, but I know you have been or are on the roster for our professional rugby team here in Los Angeles, and you also play club teams. What is your experience with rugby?
So basically after college, I played football in college. I played like tight end, kind of like slot receiver, running back, a bit of an H-back. And after college, it's kind of just like looking for something to do. I think I played 1 or 2 rugby games after my senior season of football, and then ended up just like destroying my ankle, like 7 ligament tears and like a tib fib kind of fracture. It was a new sport and new movements, and I got kind of caught in a situation where I learned from very quick what not to do.
Oh, wow.
So a few years down the line, I played football in Europe for a year. I played in France. Then after that, I was kind of back home. Student loan payments are coming. So I'm like, all right, I need to get a job. And I wanted to play some rugby too. So kind of got in the circuit out here in Southern California. Started with Los Angeles Rugby Club. Ended up changing to Belmont Shore Rugby Club in Long Beach. And just been playing ever since. And I got lucky enough last year to be called up to train with the Giltinis. And I was out there. And it's been an amazing experience. And I got rostered and everything, got to play a few games, got to play in the Coliseum.
Yeah.
But, it's been great, and we're going into the second season looking to get another championship.
Well, dude, I personally am really happy for you and proud of you and hearing that journey. Benny and I haven't known each other for crazy long, but we've basically known of each other for a long time because our dads worked together. My dad and his dad were the athletic director and assistant athletic director at San Pedro High School, which is Benny's alma mater. I went to the rival high school, Narbonne, but I helped my dad on the field all the time. So I know Benny's dad really well, Max. He's such a great dude. And your dad reached out to my dad and said, hey, Benny made the Giltinis, by the way, LA Giltinis. That's the professional rugby team here in LA. And you guys helped, you did actually through Max, got us tickets to the semifinals and the championship game where we saw the Giltinis win the first ever, was it the first season of Major League Rugby last year or the second or third or something?
It was LA's first season. I think it was MLR. It's like officially was like the third season. Second one was cut short by COVID.
Got it. Well, so that in and of itself may be news to people that there is a professional rugby league in the States, MLR, Major League Rugby. And I went to those games and I loved it. And I'm wondering how much that's going to help me in my quiz knowledge, because I have 2 games of watching under my belt. I'm curious, John, where your rugby knowledge stands right now.
Seeing it and passing on TV. And I know for the fact that if I had to choose a sports team to be on my side in a fight, it would be a rugby team.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a question real quick. What's a Giltini?
It's a martini. Mm-hmm. The name is based off our owner's last name, Gilchrist, Adam Gilchrist, owner of F45 Gym out in Australia. Guy's awesome, fun dude. But he kind of popped into the league. He has also the Gilgronis. They're in Austin, Texas, and they have like live bands and they're playing right on the field. It's just like an absolute, it's been just really fun what he's been kind of doing for rugby in America. But yeah, Gilgronis, not sure what it is. Hopefully there's gin in it.
It'll be fun to see a Gill battle, hopefully. That'd be a great matchup to see. And my favorite thing about the Giltinis is their color scheme, which is a pink and like a powder blue, and then they mix it with either black or white. And I love that there's this ownership of sort of masculinity behind the color pink. You guys rock it. You guys own it for sure.
Yeah, those are my favorite jerseys for sure. I love the pink ones.
It's time to take a quiz or two. Like a genius podcast doing this for you. You may fail, but it ain't no lie, baby, it's quiz time. Don't really want this quiz to be tough. I just want to pass one cause I failed enough. It might sound crazy, but it ain't no lie, baby, it's quiz time.
Benny Weischedel, you've been nice enough to put a quiz together for us. Mm-hmm. And man, I'm just going to hand the reins over to you if you want to. We got 5 questions. We're going to see how this goes. John looked ahead. I did not. So we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, it doesn't have the actual answers on it.
No, I'm just joking. I'm just messing. But I've been to 2 professional rugby games, so that kind of evens out the playing field.
I suppose.
All right. What do we got then?
All right, so first off, rugby, kind of like a soccer match, except it's 80 minutes. There's 15 positions and 0 protection. Obviously, it's a pretty violent sport. We're just going to kind of go over the rules and kind of some of the concepts of it, obviously, just to get people filled in.
Yeah.
So obviously, within kind of like an American football team, we're divided into like different types of players. You have your skill positions in football, then you have like your bigs. Now, our first question for a rugby team. What 2 categories are the teams divided into? Is it A, the kickers and passers, B, backs and forwards, C, throwers and strikers, or D, drunks and soon-to-be drunks?
I think if it was Kevin and I playing, it would be D.
Yeah, we'd be the drunks. Well, we would probably switch every game which role we'd be. Excellent quiz already, man. You're 1 for 1 on your question writing. John, what are you thinking? We got kickers and passers, backs and forwards, throwers and strikers, or drunks and soon-to-be drunks.
I feel like rugby is a very European game. I mean, I'm not sure where it originated, but I know it was not the U.S. Throwers and strikers seems very English way of putting things. So I'm going to go with that.
That's going to be your logic. Okay. Yep. I'm going to go with backs and forwards. I kind of have a visual from seeing the game and kind of getting a sense of that. But yeah, I'm going to choose B, backs and forwards. How do we do?
Well, yeah, sorry. So John, threw in some soccer language a little bit, just trying to get something in the general concept. But Evan, you're right. It is split off into backs and forwards.
That's for me then. All right, John, good try though.
So just to give you some context, so with rugby, so we have our restarts. It's kind of like in football when you have like the start of a possession. So often in rugby, we have a scrum. That's when you'll see all the guys kind of bind together. Yeah. Now, the guys in that scrum are called the forwards. So those are your bigs. Typically, like that's where I play. I play at like flanker, 8-man, 6-man. Every position has like a number and kind of a name associated with it.
Wow.
I'm not going to go into it too much because we're going to get some of those.
Okay.
But yeah, you have your number. So that's going to be 1 through 8 are going to be your forwards, kind of bigger guys. And then you have your back line. And that's going to be more of the kind of nimble, like skill positions, kind of a mix between like the receivers, kind of running back type that are like shifty, good tacklers, but just a little bit quicker because those are you guys that the forwards want to be setting up to be able to score. Forwards just kind of do all the dirty work. Do all the hard stuff, and the backs come out with their hair gel and fancy footwork.
I was going to say, yeah, you get all the bruises and they get all the scores. Yeah, it's amazing when I was watching the game, the scrums, because there were quite a few of them. It happens very frequently, and sometimes I just imagine like, does anybody in there get to the point where they're like, oh man, I got to go do this again? Oh God, here we go again. I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but I bet the adrenaline and you're just focused on your goal that you just do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything, you just kind of have a goal within every phase play. So it's like life, I have to go to work. Well, what do I got to do to go to work to make it seem like I want to do this, right?
Yeah.
Same as rugby, you're getting in that scrum. You just have, the few things that you want to focus on. But generally, MLR kind of wants to see us just getting the ball out and getting it to the fancy backs who are going to start the phase play, hands, footwork, and all that fun stuff.
So, I mean, I know like there's no protection on the players. Are injuries just as bad in rugby as it is in American football, or is it less because you're not wearing protection and you're a little bit more careful? Or
I'd say football is just a little bit more reckless. You're dressed in the armor, and you don't have to worry about, I played safety and linebacker and things in football. And I know once you see that person running across the field, you're just squaring them up and you're like, I don't even have to decelerate. I'm just going to go through them. Where in rugby, you need to like actually wrap them. You need to hit them in a certain position. And you also don't want to get your head involved because there's a few little places over here that are little triggers for going lights out. I would say football is actually worse, at least injury-wise. For running backs, linebackers, you're always jamming your head and stuff. I was one of those guys that's like you're going for a block. You're using your hips and feet, but you're also finishing with your face a little bit at times. Whereas rugby, you kind of just don't want to do that because you like maybe you don't like your face, but you like your orbital bone or your jaw.
You got a great face, Benny. So I'm glad to see you protected yours.
Not really, but you can't really see the scars, I guess, on here. But
that's too low of resolution on the camera. Too bad. Yeah. That was a good question, John. And great first question for the quiz. Where I'm 1 for 1, John is 0 for 1. Let's go on to number 2.
All right. So rugby is broken off. We don't have rules, so we have laws.
Oh.
And obviously, you want to be a gentleman. You're not just going to be absolutely savage breaking the laws, but you do kind of want to get away with it, as subtly as possible. But we do have some different laws when it comes to rugby. And I just want to go over, so what is the most basic law of rugby union? So is it A, that players are not allowed to go out of bounds at any time? B, no player may pass the ball forward. C, no big players may kick the ball. Or D, there must be 15 players on the field at all times.
Oh, great choices. Oh my gosh. John, would you be mad if you were playing? Because you'd be a big player, and I know you'd probably want to kick that ball.
Well, assuming that's the correct answer.
Exactly, yeah. So I guess, maybe we'll find out. What are you thinking, John?
I'm thinking B, because and what little I have seen, I've never seen him go forward. It's always been lateral or back.
Yeah, I do know that to be true. And I think about if you go out of bounds, I believe it's a turnover, but technically you can go out of bounds.
Yeah, I mean, it could be kind of like with soccer, where as long as the ball doesn't go out, then it's okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, but I'm with you, John. I'm pretty sure if I had to take a stab at this without even having these choices, I probably would say you can't pass the ball forward. So yeah, I'm going to choose B as well.
Both of you guys are correct. So
all right, go us.
You may not pass the ball forward. So that's the most basic law. The one way you can advance the ball is through kicking it forward.
Got it. Yes.
It's kind of like in soccer. Your team has to be onside, so you can't have a person 10 meters in front of you. Then you kick it and he catches it. He has to be behind the kicker. You'll see some guys, just kind of really skilled guys, will be able to kick kind of like a lobbing, like a pass to somebody who's running onto the ball. But generally, it's passing everything backwards. It's a little tricky, though, because in rugby, you have your velocity of like how you're running and you're trying to pass it backwards. But the velocity of both of them are like, if you're both moving here and you pass the ball is still going to, I don't know if I could see that forward. Like both move forward. So we have some refs on the side that are kind of judging the ball if it's a forward pass. Basically, what they're looking for is making sure like your wrists aren't pointed forward. That's kind of like their trigger. If you're getting rid of the ball and it's anywhere like in front of you, they're going to be like, all right, forward pass. But it's kind of, it's a tough rule. It's probably that most people cry about on the field.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, I bet they do.
Probably similar to offsides in soccer.
Yeah. But, the ref will call it and stop play if he sees a forward pass at any time.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, all right. I'm glad we both got that one right. So I'm 2 for 2. John's 1 for 2. We'll move on to number 3.
All right, so this gives a kind of segue from our last point. So once we do get into that phase play and going through hands, now we have when a knock-on occurs, which is when a player drops the ball forward onto the ground, the gameplay restarts with what? Does it start with a line out, a kick, a scrum, or a quick tap of the ball?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so a knock-on is when the person who has the ball drops it going forward. Yeah. Okay. So then what happens to restart the game?
I think it's C.
You think it's a scrum?
Yeah. But you've been to more games than I have.
I know.
So,
Well,
I mean,
that would be my best guess as well. I'm trying to visualize it. Yeah, I think it's a scrum, but what I'm not sure of is like, I guess this will be what will get answered. Like, what happens with the ball? Does one team have the ball? Does it drop in the middle, almost like a hockey puck in hockey? But I'm also going to choose scrum. I'm choosing C.
Yes, that is right.
Right.
It is a scrum. It's not a dead ball like right away.
Okay.
And we'll get into that in our next question. But once the ball is on the floor, it's an automatic turnover. So if someone drops the ball forward, it's an automatic restart. And you go to your scrum, which is basically the restart. You have all the bigs latching together and getting into phase play. Now we have also another phase. A restart is also a line out. And you'll see that when we have the person throwing in the ball and you have those two jumpers going up with the opposite teams.
Oh, yeah. They literally, somebody literally lifts their own teammate up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I love seeing that. And they throw it in and then they battle it out to try to catch the ball, basically.
Yeah, you're trying to get at different parts, but trying to get the ball off the top to one of your players that is going to be passing the ball towards the backs.
Yeah, I will say that's one of my favorite things and why I'd highly recommend if anyone listening finds that they have a local rugby team, whether it be club or professional, just because you're going to see things on a field that you really don't see anywhere else. There's similarities, but the jumping in the air on the lineouts and the scrums and the bodies hitting, like it's something really to take in when you're in person. All right, should we jump into number 4 then?
Yeah.
All right, where right now I'm 2 for 3, John, or I'm 3 for 3. John is 2 for 3.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so now we have when a referee holds one hand outstretched towards a team during live play, he is signaling that this team has what? So it's kind of going to look like, you can't really see me, but he's going to have his arm stretched out like this, and he's going to be pointing one direction. What is he signaling? A, that this team committed a penalty. B, advantage. C, too many players on the field. Or D, an injured player.
Interesting. All right. So the ref has his outstretched hand pointing towards one team. That's tough. My gut is saying go with committed a penalty, but I could really see it being either. And I'm not entirely sure what advantage means. So it's like, ooh, that's like a wild card. I'm going to choose committed a penalty.
And I was thinking advantage. So
you're going to go for it? Yeah. And you probably want to try to gain some ground. So probably a good strategy. All right. What do we got?
All right, John, you are correct.
John got it. Oh, and that's for me. Okay.
Right. So yes, it's signaling an advantage, which basically means there has been a penalty, and advantage is basically the ref kind of signals who has the advantage and allows the play to play out until, maybe there's another penalty to where he will blow the whistle, the game like dead, and there'll be a restart. So for example, with our last question we had, during a knock on, you have a player that knocks the ball forward, but the other team could still hop on top of it and scoop it up and score. So they have the advantage at that point. The ref will signal towards them. They have advantage, give them about, I'm not sure how long, I'd say probably 10 seconds of advantage to be able to kind of play. And that's, I think, one of the most confusing parts for like new rugby eyes. Like
viewers,
It's, the ref just seems to blow the whistle at like a random time of the game and stop. And everybody's like, what the heck happened? So it's a very it's a sport where you're watching the player, but you want to be looking at the ref signals a lot too. He'll signal, we have plenty of signals for, signaling like a try.
Oh yeah. What's a try again? Cause that happens. That's a score basically, right?
Yep.
Yes. That took me a second to figure out
when
I was watching the game.
Basically, I think what that means is you get to try for a kick for your extra points. And that's another thing that's a little bit different than American football. You don't just cross an imaginary plane of line. You actually have to ground the ball down.
It's not just crossing the plane.
Yeah, touch the ball down in a controlled manner. So you can't like let the ball slip out, then hit the floor. It has to be like a perfect grounding.
Got it.
And then what's interesting about rugby is wherever you ground the ball, in rugby, you kick from that same point on the field. So let's say in American football, you have the guys always diving for the pylon.
Yeah.
So in rugby, if you are hitting the ball down in like that corner for a try, you're actually trying to kick through the post from that like left side, that left hash mark.
Way out wide. I see. So if you're like wide open and going to score easily, then you'd want to run towards the middle of the end zone or whatever and ground it there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fascinating. And so how many points do you get for a try? And then how much do you get for the kick?
So a try is 5 points, kick is 2.
Okay. And then is there another way to score without, I haven't looked at the last question yet, but is there like almost like the equivalent of a field goal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you can kick for points as well. So let's say there was a penalty and you're, 15 meters out, because in rugby too, as soon as you score, you actually get the ball back.
Oh, wow. That's a huge advantage.
Yep.
Okay. Random question that's been on my mind, because I know we're on screen here. John is 6'7", right, John?
Yeah.
Where would he be playing on the field?
Oh man, 6'7". That's some good size.
Yeah.
He would probably be a lock, and you would be one of those guys or you'd be in the front row, depending on how easy you are to lift.
How easy are you to lift?
Not easy. I suppose if you can lift, 350, 375, then easy, but
you'd be front row. And those are basically the guys that are in the front of the scrum. There's going to be 3 in the front kind of latching together. And then you have everybody else setting up behind them. You have another 4 behind them, and then another 1 in the back. I think you'd just be in the front row. Your height would be really good for those lifters that are jumping up during a line out to kind of go up the ball and pat it on your side.
I think that would be our specialty, John, is I'd be the guy that you lift up. You just haul me in the air and I'd go catch the ball.
Just throw you up there.
Yeah, just launch me. Well, dude, we're moving right along. We're coming into the last question, and we're tied, right, John? 3 for 4?
Yep.
Oh my goodness, this couldn't be going better. All right, you ready to give us our last question here?
Yes, let's do it. All right, so as I said, some of the players. So we have numbers. So front row is going to be 1 through 3. I play like 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
But we also have names for it. So to let you know, there's like the prop. In rugby, there's a hooker.
All right.
The next question is, a hooker is responsible for what duties during a game? Is it A, making sure the match ball is deflated to the correct PSI? B, first player to pass the ball out of scrum and kicking duties? C, kicking duties during phase play and deep coverage on defense? Or D, throwing the ball in during lineouts and middleman in scrums?
Oh my goodness. So
I want to say really the name for A should be not Brady.
yeah, exactly. Making sure so Brady, if it is A, then Brady had a hooker every day on the field for him.
No. I guess if it was deflating to what Brady
deflated
wanted,
to not Brady's PSI,
the correct PSI.
Let me read these through one more time for us and for the audience. So, a hooker. What is the hooker's responsibilities, duties during the game? Making sure the match ball is deflated to the correct PSI. B is first player to pass the ball at a scrum and all kicking duties. C is kicking duties during phase play and deep coverage on defense. And D is throwing the ball in during lineouts and middleman in scrums. Wow. So yeah, dual duty. What you think you got something, John? I think I know what I want to pick.
I'm just going to guess with D.
Okay, well,
throwing the ball in.
I am picking something different, though I am worried that that's going to be right. But I want to see one of us win. So, I want to go with. Oh gosh,
it's okay to tie, Kevin.
I wasn't going to choose D originally, but no, I'm going to stick with what I said, because the deep coverage on defense is what got me. The kicking scares me a little bit, but C is kicking duties during phase play and deep coverage on defense. I'm going to choose that one.
All right, so the correct answer for that is going to be D. John, you are correct.
John with the comeback. Oh, all right. So the hooker.
So let's talk about hookers.
Okay.
They hook the ball.
They, honestly, I gotta say, they're probably one of the most skilled players on the team.
Okay.
Usually a bit shorter in stature, but very mobile and skilled with their hands and sometimes feet. They definitely get into the hardest positions during the game, because in that scrum, so you have those front 3, like John had mentioned, you'd be a prop, those front 3 binding together. So the hooker is like that middleman. And what he's doing, I don't know if I could show this with my fingers, but the hooker actually has one leg outstretched and he's trying to hook the ball back towards his team.
And they're literally using their leg to do that every time?
Yeah, so they're kind of crouched. Their feet are pretty narrow and they're crouched forward. really low position and they're having to like hold their weight basically, hold the weight of the scrum on them, everybody pushing behind them and the other team pushing into them.
Oh my gosh.
And then they get their leg free enough to be able to hook the ball back towards their 8-man, who's the last person in the scrum, who will either grab the ball and run it out, or the 8-man could also kind of just keep it in play and allow the 9, which is basically an equivalent of like a quarterback in rugby, to get it out and use his hands to get it out to the backs.
Okay, got it. And so essentially the 3 that are locked, it's a scrum, right? The 3 that are locked in are just trying to create enough space for the hooker to get the leg in without too much trouble. So it's even if you're just moving the other side a couple of inches, or centimeters since it's European, then you're creating space for him, basically.
Yeah, I mean, well, there isn't much space in that actual scrum, so the hooker is like the middleman between those 3.
Okay.
But they're just trying to stay low enough and strong enough to not be pushed over so that the other team could hook it back to their side.
Gotcha.
So does rugby have plays like football does, or is it just kind of you've got drills and you practice throwing the ball back and forth, but in general it's just more of a very reactionary versus a planned thing?
Yeah, football is a lot more rote, but I mean, at least in the NFL, you have a lot of read plays. When I was playing in college, we had one coach who's just like, everything you're going here on this, on blue 568, you have to run your drag or whatever. And it's just like not much thinking. You're just kind of taking orders. With rugby, it's kind of up in the air because someone might not be in position, but we know the general flow of the game and where we want the ball to go. At least for the teams that I've played for, you're calling, a phase play that's maybe like 3 or 4 plays in advance to know like where everybody's going to go. And then during the game, you're just kind of reading it and seeing what opens up. So it's kind of a specifics, and then also ad lib, like figuring out, okay, where do I need to go? What's important now, because you don't want to lose possession.
And you could probably I'm sure you can make this argument for any sport, but it seems like with rugby, you really have to know and trust your teammates. It seems like you really have to have you have to be in sync with one another. Is there a strong bond among teammates? Like what's the locker room like? How would you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think rugby more so than football, because in football, you have your different positions. You have the offensive linemen, you have the linebackers, and everybody's always kind of like split up into their own specifics, and then you come together during the game. But rugby, everybody depends on everybody. And, creating that bond and like knowing players, and you want to know like their habits. You want to like really get to know them, like where they're even from. And it's really big to just like know the people around you and like have a bond with them, because it's kind of like a drama. It's like life sped up like super quick. And there's going to be people breaking laws, and there's going to be chaotic stuff happening, and you have to be able to react to a situation to be able to keep the ball on your side and keep you moving forward. And with rugby, I think the bond it's so much more important than any sport that I've played. Basketball is a little bit more individual. You could get away, with the LA Lakers, you can get away with playing as an individual until the Suns or the Spurs come through or the Dallas Mavericks in whatever 2011 or whatever that came through, actually working as a team to take you out. Rugby's not too much, at least in 15s is what we're playing here. It's not too much of an individual sport, because as soon as you go off on your own, you're a bit vulnerable. Yeah. Because then you're just off on your own. The other team could get over you and make you turn the ball over. It's almost sometimes you want to let a guy go through that will play like an individual, because then you could just grab the ball from him.
Yeah, that's one thing I really appreciated. There was very little ego on that field. It was never like, I scored the touchdown and all eyes should be on me. And touchdown in football, I scored the try, all eyes should be on me. It was a team thing. You guys celebrate as a team. And then the other thing is that the sportsmanship between the two teams, where, my understanding and from what I saw was like, yeah, you're going to beat the crap out of each other on that field, but once the game's over, you guys are hugging and shaking hands, and it's like you went to battle together.
Yeah, so rugby is a huge, just a cultural sport too, where you have, something that drew me to the sport is like the culture. So I've played on teams. You guys have guys from like Fiji, Zimbabwe, Samoa, South Africa, Europe, America, and Canada.
Amazing.
All on the same team. Wow. You're playing the same sport. And it's really important to kind of like learn about each other. Everybody kind of knows each other because it's such like a small, at least in the US, it's such a small sport that you kind of like bond together and you really want to get to know each other because like you're out here. And then after match, you drink with each other. You drink some beers. The home team hosts the other.
Wow.
So you give them beer and you also feed them. And
beer and food, man. That's all the peace offering you need in this world.
Yeah. So it's really nice going somewhere and beating a team and drinking all their beer.
I bet I'm gonna have a few extras here.
Hey, do you ever go like you go and you play against someone, they feed you, give you beer, and then the next time you're like, you know what, that was really good food. I'm gonna go a little bit easier on it next time.
Dang, that steak was good.
It's kind of like the opposite. Like if a team gives you like 2 beers and crummy food, you're just like, dude, I'm going to kick your ass so hard.
I bet. I bet.
But definitely kind of you want to carry your weight because it really shows like what kind of club you are by what you could do for the other team. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely playing in club rugby out here, everybody's fighting to get sponsorships, and with Belmont Shore Rugby, you can check them out on Instagram too, because we play locally in Los Angeles, based out of Long Beach, but also play in Santa Monica, San Diego, Oceanside.
Cool.
But you want to make sure that you're like hosting the team properly, and like you're giving them beer and you're feeding them, and you're actually able to kind of just like bond with each other, because a lot of these guys have played with each other, now playing against each other. And it's really important to just kind of be able to, with football, you see the dramatic, like, oh, I hate this guy. It's kind of like how MMA is transforming into like the whole Conor McGregor attitude. Like, oh, I hate his guts. He's whatever. Yeah. And I'm talking about his wife. It's like, you do that in rugby, like, dude.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. Yeah.
You gotta drop the ego a bit, and because you're going to be vulnerable at some point.
Yeah, well, I like something you said earlier, where you kind of made it. Rugby's kind of a metaphor for life, and there's vengeance, and there's honor, and there's respect, and things go well and things go wrong, but you guys work together, and that's that's really cool to hear. And I haven't been to a Belmont Shores Rugby Club match yet, and I'd love to make it out to one. I'm sure you guys put on a great show. I can only attest to the Giltini's experience, which the team really seems to have. I mean, I'm wearing literally a free shirt I got from the game because they wanted everybody pumped up. Like they take care of their fans, and I just would highly recommend checking out, finding local rugby for you. I want to be respectful of your time, Benny, but maybe one last question is how is this sport going to grow? Is there youth sports? Is it getting more eyes on it through professional rugby? All of the above? What do you see?
Yeah, I think when I started rugby out here, there was no professional rugby, but there's always like kind of talks. There's another league that started, I think, around like 2014 that eventually went bankrupt. But we wanted a team in LA, and I always kind of had in the back of my head, like, man, I'm just going to there's going to eventually be a pro team out here. Mm-hmm. But, you don't have it. You need that grassroots level where you have the club rugby, you have youth coming in, you have, there's like a pathway for the athletes to go through. Mm-hmm. And everything's set. Everybody and their mother wants a kid playing football or soccer, baseball, basketball. But now we're starting to see a lot more rugby kind of pop up around in like high school sports and youth sports too. And, probably what Belmont Shore, like I would highly recommend, our youth program, because we just have so many players. It's such a great community. The culture is very like Polynesian based, where we have some great coaches, but it's also mentors that are out there and, mentoring these kids to, don't be, it's the kind of number one rule is like no dickheads. That's
I love it.
And it's 2 words, but it means so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll get a taste of like the kind of mana philosophy and playing for your teammates, because when it comes down to it, like with rugby, it's not about you. It's like the guy with the highest status on the team is honestly the person that does the most for their teammates.
Wow.
It's not about, someone could go in and score, 5 tries, but there's someone setting them up. There's a bit of a butterfly effect in rugby that, it's hard to see just as a new watcher, but there's guys that are doing little cheeky things to be able to set someone else up to score. And I think that's kind of a foreign concept for Americans to see, like, yeah, it's not all about you, it's about all of us. And that's another thing that's like keeps me drawn in, because, you want to see people around you doing good. You want to set someone else up. And there's just so many opportunities for it, and it's really fun, and then you chat after the game, you drink some beers, you thank your buddy if he set you up pretty good, you're buying him a beer. If the other team beat you, you're buying them a beer,
Wow.
and you're kind of giving the kudos to them.
That's great.
I mean, I wonder if it's going to start if the message can get out there, kind of like to my question towards the beginning, is it potentially safer than football? There's been talks about, colleges and, not putting as much money into football programs and stuff. And so maybe if the message is kind of, rugby is a little bit safer, there's less of those traumatic injuries, maybe get the money funneled in the rugby programs.
Yeah.
And also I happen to take a look at the Major League Rugby teams. Mm-hmm. There are none in the Midwest.
Oh.
So Ben, I have a challenge for you. Talk to your owner and see if he wants to have a third team.
Yes.
Somewhere, Indy, Chicago, Ohio, somewhere.
Chicago would be awesome.
Like the closest one is Toronto.
Oh, that's
an 8-hour drive.
Yeah, I think from the looks of it looks like Chicago might be having a team next year, I want to say.
Cool.
Okay.
For the 2023 season. So, but yeah, Midwest is like kind of the next frontier.
Yeah.
Problem is no one really wants to live out there,
Well, that is what I was thinking. You talk about a lot of people coming over from New Zealand, Australia, Europe. Right. They're probably coming to the coast. They're probably coming to the West Coast, and not a lot of people going to Muncie, Indiana. I know you're not meaning Muncie, but I think we're doing our part today for two things. We're getting the campaign for Indiana involved more in the sports world, and we're spreading the joy of rugby. I would love to see this sport grow. And Ben, man, you've been such a great ambassador for the sport of rugby and for your various teams, and you've been a gentleman. And man, we appreciate the knowledge that you've shared with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure coming on with you guys, and I love seeing you at the game. I love seeing people out there that I know. It really makes it special. Just that's how it kind of happens. Like, okay, so my dad's coworker's son works for the radio station. He wants, and I hear you're stoked. But I'm like, let's go. I'd love to, use something to get away from all the, get away from everything and enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Well, Ben, once again, man, appreciate you. Have a great season with your various teams, and keep being such a great ambassador, man. You're really doing a great job for the sport.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And just to give a quick shout out, so for the next home game, we're going to be playing against the Free Jacks on Sunday, the 27th of this month. So that's our opening for the Giltinis, the opening match. At the Coliseum, right? At the Coliseum. It's at 3 p.m. It's not like a football game where it's going to eat up 7 hours of your day if you go to one. The matches are 80 minutes. Halftime is pretty quick too. So it's a great thing to go to. It's plenty of beer, plenty of fun. Bring your family out because everybody else is. There you go. Thanks for the plug, man. Yeah. I'll be out there to support you, and I hope our listeners will too, and anyone interested in the sport. And John, congrats on your win today. We'll be back next week. I'll try to get you then. Yeah, we'll see. And appreciate you both, man. You guys take care. You too. Thanks, guys. It's the Lack of Genius podcast in your ear holes at last. They don't know they're Mars from Venus. That's why it's the Lack of Genius podcast. So let's talk about hookers.